All right, today we're going to dive into a single idea that could honestly change everything about how you think about your creative work. It's all about shifting from hiding your process to making your entire journey public. So, let's get right into it.
So let me just ask you something. Are you waiting? Waiting until you're some kind of certified genius before you dare to share what you're working on? We all feel that pressure, right? That need to be perfect before we hit publish. But what if that very instinct is the thing that's holding you back?
Well, here's the problem. The whole idea of a lone genius who just locks themselves away and emerges with a masterpiece, it's a total myth. Creativity just doesn't happen in a vacuum. And believing that it does, it's not only isolating, it's actually completely unproductive.
Okay, so let's really break down this lone genius myth. Why is creating in a vacuum such an outdated, broken idea? Well, mostly because in our super connected world, there's a much healthier and, frankly, more effective way to get things done.
The alternative to the lone genius is something called a scenius. This is a really powerful idea. It suggests creativity isn't individual, it's communal. It's this whole scene of people, a mix of amateurs and experts, all sharing ideas, borrowing from each other, and pushing the whole group forward. You don't have to be a genius to be part of a scenius. You just have to show up.
So this leads us to a completely new way to operate. See, it's not enough anymore to just do great work. You have to be findable. So what's the game plan? How do you actually make that happen?
The core philosophy is actually pretty simple, but it's powerful. First, you share your process online, not just the final, polished product. And you might be thinking, but I'm not an expert. Well, that's the point. You don't have to be. In fact, an amateur sharing their struggles and discoveries is often way more relatable. And when you do this, you naturally start to attract a community of people who care about the same stuff you do. And that, well, that can change everything.
I mean, this quote just makes it all so real, doesn't it? Just imagine that. Your future boss doesn't even need your resume because they're already a fan of your work. When your process is out there in the open, you're building a public body of work, a reputation, day by day. Your little side projects can suddenly turn into massive opportunities, all because you built a community around them. That's the real power of showing your work.
Okay, so we've covered the why. It makes sense. But now for the how. How do you actually turn this big idea into a daily practice? Let's get into the small, totally doable habits that make this a reality.
The biggest shift you have to make is from product to process. The old way was to hide everything until the quote-unquote big reveal. But honestly, people today want to see the journey. They want the behind the scenes. So stop waiting for it to be finished and just start documenting what you're doing.
So where do you start, like today? Number one, just document your process. Seriously, just take notes, snap some photos, grab a few screenshots. Don't overthink it. Number two, share something small every day. The bar is super low here. If it could help or entertain just one person, it's worth it. And number three, and this one is crucial, get your own domain name. Claim your little corner of the internet. It is one of the single best investments you can make.
Now, sharing your work isn't just you broadcasting out into the void. It's about starting a conversation. It's about finding your scenius. Because the real magic doesn't happen when you're focused on yourself. It happens when you start focusing on the community around you.
So how do you become a good citizen of your scene? Well, it starts with a really simple rule. To find fans, you have to be a fan first. Generously share the work of others that you admire, and always give credit. A link back isn't just polite, it provides context and it builds goodwill. The ultimate goal is to become what's called an open node. You're the person connecting people and ideas, not just promoting your own stuff.
And this brings us to a super important point about audiences. Forget follower counts. Seriously, forget all the vanity metrics. You don't just want eyeballs, you want hearts. A small, dedicated audience that genuinely cares about what you do is worth infinitely more than a massive, passive one.
Of course, putting yourself out there is, well, it's scary. So for this last part, let's talk about embracing the long game. How you can face your fears, deal with criticism, and stay motivated for the rewards that are way down the road.
Whoa, okay. That's an intense quote, I know. But it gets at a really deep truth. That fear of embarrassment, of looking stupid, it's what stops almost everyone from sharing their work. But if you're constantly avoiding any kind of vulnerability, you'll never create anything that truly connects with people. You got to be willing to take a few punches.
And finally, let's just bust one more myth while we're at it. The myth of the starving artist. It is absolutely okay to sell out. There's nothing wrong with getting paid for your work. Money doesn't make you less creative, it actually sustains your creativity. I mean, Michelangelo didn't paint the Sistine Chapel for free, right? So don't ever be afraid to build your audience and then ask for fair compensation for the value you're creating.
So let's end this right back where we started. Forget about being a genius. Forget about being perfect. Just think about your process right now. What is one small thing, a thought, a lesson you learned, even a question you have that you can share with someone today?